This first review of somatic motor pathways, which I'm going to call part 1, is going to cover 3 tracts that are involved in the voluntary control of skeletal muscles. So what we're going to see is what they all have in common is that all 3 of them are involved in the voluntary control of skeletal muscle, and also that the upper motor neurons are found within the cerebral cortex, and specifically they're going to originate in the primary motor cortex, which is found within the precentral gyrus of the frontal lobe. So when you voluntarily want to initiate contraction of a skeletal muscle, it all originates from that primary motor cortex. So the first one we're going to look at is the corticobulbar tracts. So it'll be the one I'm pointing to here. So you'll notice that the upper motor neurons, the cell bodies, are found in that primary motor cortex. They will descend down, because these are descending pathways, and they're going to synapse with the cell bodies of the lower motor neurons. And the cell bodies of the lower motor neurons are found within the motor nuclei of cranial nerves. And they're going to innervate various structures in the head and the neck. So the different things that could result from the corticobulbar tracts is voluntary movements of the eyes. You have your ocular motor nerve, which is cranial nerve 3, the trochlear nerve, which is cranial nerve 4, and the abducens is cranial nerve 6. So all 3 cranial nerves innervate the extraocular eye muscles. So the trochlear nerve innervates the superior oblique muscle. The abducens nerve innervates the lateral rectus muscle. All the other extrinsic eye muscles are innervated by the ocular motor nerve. So they'll allow you to move your eye up, down, to the side, to the middle, kind of rotate it. So those will be involved. If you want to chew, mastication, so that's chewing, the mandibular branch, which they refer to as V3, the mandibular branch of the trigeminal nerve is involved in chewing. And that's really why they call it V3, is because it's cranial nerve 5. Facial expression is cranial nerve number 7, the facial nerve. So smiling, frowning, any kind of movements of the muscles of the face. The other nerves that will be involved in the corticobulbar tracts will be the glossopharyngeal nerve, which is cranial nerve 9. The vagus is cranial nerve 10. Those will be involved in swallowing. The spinal accessory nerve, cranial nerve 11, allow you to move your neck, do some shoulder shrugging. And the last one is the hypoglossal nerve, which is cranial nerve 12, for movements of the tongue. Now the other 2 tracts I want to discuss are the corticospinal tracts. There's 2 of them. There's a lateral and an anterior corticospinal tracts. And they're going to somewhat be represented by this one right here. So you'll notice that the upper motor neurons, just like the other tract, the upper motor neurons originate in the primary motor cortex of the frontal lobe. And it descends down, and depending on if it's an anterior or the lateral corticospinal tracts, depends on which column of the spinal cord it descends, but we'll look at that in a second. But it will synapse with the cell body of the lower motor neuron within the anterior gray horn of the spinal cord. Now, these 2 tracts are going to be considered part of the pyramidal system. Some people will say that the corticobulbar tracts are part of the pyramidal system, but I tend to disagree. So we'll kind of see, you make the decision. Is these are referred to as part of the pyramidal system because the neurons have large pyramid-shaped cell bodies, and the axons, they descend down from the pyramids of the medulla oblongata, and they're visible. So here I'm going to do it in, say, green. This is a pyramid, and that's a pyramid. So those are the medullary pyramids of the medulla oblongata. Now, if you look at this picture, all three tracts originate in that primary motor cortex of the frontal lobe. They come down and they descend into the brainstem, and they emerge on either side of the midbrain, which is represented right here. This is the midbrain. As the cerebral peduncles. That's what they refer to as cerebral peduncles. But you'll notice is that the lateral corticospinal tract and the anterior corticospinal tracts, those fibers, those axons, come down through those medullary pyramids. Now I'm going to erase this because I'm going to follow each pathway, is the lateral corticospinal tract. What will happen is those fibers will cross over or decussate within the medulla oblongata, decussate to the opposite side of the spinal cord, and it will descend through the lateral corticospinal tract, which is found in the lateral white columns. So you'll notice here was the left side of the brain, and it descended down the right side of the spinal cord, and it's going to innervate muscles in the right side of the body. You'll notice the upper motor neurons come down and they stop right here. And on the picture in white, here's the cell body located in the anterior gray horn of the spinal cord. That's the cell body of the lower motor neuron, which then will innervate muscles of, say, the limbs, the trunk. The anterior corticospinal tract, though, I'm going to do that, say, in green. They come down those medullary pyramids. They do not cross over there. They keep coming down, but they're going to descend in the anterior white columns of the spinal cord. When they reach their destination, is there at the level of the spinal cord, they will then decussate. They will then decussate and then will synapse with the cell body of the lower motor neurons. But overall, both tracts, though, will end up controlling the opposite side of the body. So the left cerebral cortex of the upper motor neurons originating the left side, they control the right side of the body. If the upper motor neurons originate in the right cerebral cortex, they will control the left side of the body. Also, please notice, look at the motor homunculus. If you look here in the middle, starting here, is upper motor neurons located more medially, innervate muscles of the lower limbs. Then as you move laterally, you see trunk, arm, hand, face. So that's kind of the order in which it goes. So if you have, say, a cerebral infarction, some sort of damage, say, to right in here, you're going to have loss of voluntary control of muscle in the hand, but not the feet or the face. This is the end of the first part of the somatic motor pathways. If you want to look at the motor pathways involved in subconscious control of skeletal muscle, you look at part 2.